Well, I don't have to tell you, if you go to the pharmacy like I do quite a bit, for example, my mom, she takes a lot of candy. Ooh, mom's got a lot of candy. I love you, Lee's Pharmacy. Thank you for protecting mom and my dad when he was alive, and protecting mom right now. Oh, thank you, Lee's Pharmacy. I love you guys. They're always taking care of my mom. She takes a lot of candy. Well, I'm seeing a slow creep. Yes, it's obvious. 6.5%, they say, a little north of 6.5%, the increase in prescription drugs this year compared to last. So let me go to Dr. Mark Shortwood and welcome him back to the program. Dr. Mark, it's a pleasure, sir. In the end, Dr. Mark, who is responsible for regulating the price of prescription drugs? Because I hear all this complaining and all these promises from politicians and policymakers. We got to do something about the price of prescription drugs. I mean, why is it your job to do something like that? It's like that, and then people, like everybody likes sheep. So, oh yeah, the government's got to do something. That's what gets us in trouble. In your opinion, Dr. Mark, who should be always responsible for the price of prescription drugs?
You know, my answer is going to surprise you. It is us as people by what we do. We need to reverse the comorbidities by lifestyle choices, improve that, making the necessity of these drugs go down, and our lack of using them is going to force them to draw the prices down because they're not able to sell them at a higher price. It's all about supply versus demand.
Yeah. More supply will increase the asking price for it eventually. Is there a role for the state or federal government in, I don't know, making one big, at the very least helping out R&D, all the expense, making one big fat purchase to guarantee the revenue and increase the supply, thereby lowering the end user price? Because a lot of people advocate for that. Yeah.
We're talking about looking at supply and suppliers. I suspect, although it hasn't been stated in the articles and things you talk about, I suspect supply chain issues, again, as they affected everybody, I suspect supply chain issues are affecting this too, causing the drug companies to raise their prices up. And you're right, the politicians go in there and they say, well, we're going to lower drug prices. And it's just it seems like to me about a battle of words at this point with no action.
You know who never gets any airplay? And I have personal experience with this because I have a special needs child who suffers from cystic fibrosis. And from birth, with all the medicines that boy needs to take, and some of them are state-of-the-art, leading, just released by the FDA into the market. But the cystic fibrosis population is such a small population. I mean, it's minuscule. No wonder no federal aid is ever allocated for research. They've done a wonderful job at the CF Foundation in conducting private fundraisers, setting up laboratories, successful laboratories that provide, for example, like the Z-Pack, or like an anti-inflammatory medicine, and they release it to market. And with the money they make more laboratories. It's like, that's like the way to do it. Privately raise your money, create something, make more laboratories, and that's what the CF Foundation has done. But the people who never get any airplay, Doc. By the way, my friend Dr. Mark Shortwood joining me right now. We're talking about the increase in prescription drug prices. Is how the manufacturers, the people who produce, like people like Vertex, and like they produce Creon, like something for your belly to break down the fats. From Pulmozyme, the manufacturer for that. Even some of the new medicines, those manufacturers, they have programs to help people who are poor and don't have the money to pay for these super expensive medicines. They never, ever are included in the conversation by media, and how important they are and how they meet the need in our private market, in our private sector economy. And I think that is an injustice, because the manufacturers, yes, they make up from what they bill insurance companies and what private pay people can pay. But at the same time, they do provide the medicines. People are not dying everywhere because the manufacturers are providing the medicines to the poor. And that, to me, is an injustice, Doc.
Yeah, it is. When I look at the whole system we have right now, Sergio, the pharmaceutical industry in general, they seem to have this odd control feature, and they sort of drive the bus of the narratives. They drive the bus of the politicians, and they drive the behavior of the people. And that is grievous to me, quite frankly, and obviously in our position, we're always educating people that come in. For example, you talk about your son, he can't help that. That's just a horrifically terrible thing. He can't help that. He should get the attention, right? Let's give that to him.
And he does. You know what? Because the manufacturers are standing ready, making sure that the primary insurance pays. If they don't, the secondary insurance pays. If they don't, foundations will pay. If they don't, the manufacturer says, okay, we'll send you some. And that's amazing. It's beautiful. And that's for many maladies across the board. That's what happens in our country, and that never gets reported, Doc. That is such an injustice, how the manufacturers are always made out to be the bad guys. Big Pharma made out to be the bad guys, but they're providing medicines all the time, Doc, for the most poor.
There are people out there that absolutely need it, and we should report on the charity, the good-heartedness, the good natures of the people, as much as we report on the bad things. And then on the other side of the pendulum, we need to work diligently as an education piece in our society to say, hey, let's do what we all can do to take personal responsibility, self-government, that kind of thing, to eliminate these things that I call, self-imposed, choice-driven disease processes that do drive big pharma and more supply there. But let's control what we can control, and let's let pharma do what it does, and that way we both win. Everybody wins, and we get this good news story as opposed to the negative news that we see broadcasted so much.
And by extension, Dr. Mark Shortwood, my guest, by extension, Doc, I'll close with this. We get to protect absolutely the best, undeniably, the best research, medical system on the planet. Look, I'm reminded of this headline from last week where they said, America, like the headline was, America has the most expensive medical care on the planet, and we are not the healthiest. We got most expensive, and yet we're not the healthiest. And I always question the motivation of these numbskulls that write from this perspective. Because in my opinion, Doc, the objective of a headline and that news gets repeated all freaking day long on the national networks. The motivation is government control. Well, we need to arrest. We need to have centralized decision making. We need to have the government provide for everything. No, the hell we don't. Government doesn't produce anything. My goodness. The motivation is government control. Yes, we have the most expensive system, but like I said, the most expensive that still provides, after all the insurance and all the foundations can, the manufacturers provide the medicines to the super poor. And going back to what you said at the beginning, Doc, it's a function of liberty. Around here, Americans, we're just too damn stupid. They don't stop smoking. They just don't stop eating tacos. They don't stop drinking, and that's why we're not the healthiest, because we made stupid decisions with our lifestyle. But we still have the best medical system on the planet, and I don't want that. I don't want that machinery gummed up by the government, Doc.
No, it's messed up right now. I read some of those headlines too myself. We pay more per capita than any other country, and we're down near the bottom of industrialized nations. And you in health, and you nailed it when you talked about us making choices. Now, that's freedom, but let's don't take our freedom to make goofy choices that cause us to be, like continue to stretch the obesity crisis.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and fund the standard American diet. Those things need to go away.
Yes,
right?
sir.
And
we
so
need to come to
there's
Jesus
so
moment.
much good in our country if we would just embrace that.
Yeah.
Just embrace it.
I understood. Oh, Doc, but the tacos are so good. My goodness, those flour tacos, they're just a wonder. Thank you, Dr. Mark. Thanks for joining
You're
me
welcome.
today. We'll talk soon. Dr. Mark Shortwood, Healthy Living Pro.